voice you obey isn't yours. It's hers, still echoing through you. You can try to run. You can distract yourself with work, with meditation, with countless forms of self-overcoming. But at some point in your life, the truth whispers from within. You are still trying to be loved by your mother. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if she was good or bad, present or absent. What matters is the echo she left inside you and how much it still drives you, even when you think you're in control. Carl Jung didn't see the mother merely as a woman. To him, she was the child's entire world. And if that world was unpredictable, cold, or conditional, you grew up trying to deserve love, not live love. And what if I told you that your inner voice, the one that sabotages you, demands perfection, makes you feel wrong for simply existing, isn't even yours? Maybe you've never heard it put this way, but today you're going to see what has always been shaping you from within. And when you recognize it, something might finally break. And in breaking, it might set you free. If this already touched you, it means part of you is ready. So breathe. And if you want to follow this journey to the end, this channel is yours. Subscribe and come with us. You've lived in it since before you were born. It has no walls, yet it defines your world. No windows, yet it shapes the way you see life. This invisible house is your mother's voice inside you. Maybe it's a sweet voice, but demanding. Or maybe cold, hard to reach. Maybe you don't even hear it, but you feel its contours in every decision you make, in every fear you can't explain, in every love you chase or reject. It's there when you wonder if you're enough, when you do everything right and still feel wrong, when you want to scream but swallow the tears, or when you feel guilty for wanting more than you were allowed. And the strangest part? Sometimes that voice doesn't even resemble the real mother. It's deeper, older. It's a psychic presence, an imprint on the emotional body, like an ancestral house you carry inside, even when you change addresses. Have you ever asked yourself how many of your choices are truly your own? How many words that leave your mouth were stitched together from inherited threads? Is your idea of love built on a ground where affection only came after approval? This house once protected you. It was the shelter of your childhood, your small body's attempt to make sense of the world. But today, it might be a prison with open doors, and you haven't left yet. Can you remember the first time you felt afraid to disappoint someone? Or the last time you silenced your truth to keep the peace? Maybe not, because this house was built before memory, and what precedes memory becomes the foundation of destiny. But there is a way back, and it begins when you realize that this house is not you. It's just where you learn to be. And that's where the journey begins. Because as Jung revealed, it's not about your actual mother. It's about what stayed within you. And that's what will cross I. Imagine an invisible ink dripping from your mother's presence. Every gesture, silence, or absence stained your soul before you could even speak. That ink dried inside you, forming words you believe are yours. But they aren't. Or rather, they belong to the image your psyche created of her. Carl Jung called it the mother archetype, an ancestral psychic force that isn't limited to the woman who gave you life. It's an inner image, a field of energy, a mirror where you learn to recognize yourself, even if in fragments. And what stayed in you might have nothing to do with the real mother. Because a young child doesn't understand reasons. She feels, she registers, she organizes the world through affection or the absence of it. If she was warm one day, and distant the next. If her love felt conditional to your behavior, you grew up trying to decipher emotional riddles, trying to earn the right to be loved. And that's where the inner conflict begins. Because now, even as an adult, you still seek that same sense of safety, not from your mother, but from the feeling of being loved without having to shapeshift. How many times have you given too much just to keep the peace? How many times have you shrunk yourself to fit in? How many times have you mistaken control for care because that's all you knew? No, it's not about her. It's about what your soul did with her presence or absence. It's about what you built to survive and what now must be unbuilt for you to truly live. But how do you change something that was sown before consciousness? How do you heal a voice that speaks inside you as if it were your own? The answer is not to erase the past. It's to recognize what it still dictates and choose, with awareness and compassion, to interrupt the cycle. You arrived in the world with a raw, exposed heart, and even before you were given a name, you were already receiving messages, wordless messages, vibrations, silences, gestures that spoke louder than any language. Before the embrace came the atmosphere, before the milk, the gaze. And it was there, between hunger and affection, that your soul began interpreting the world. You weren't born blank. You were immersed in a story already in motion, with fears that weren't yours, with invisible expectations, with a mother who, no matter how much love she carried, also bore the scars of her own mother. And this is where everything gets entangled. Because childhood is not just a period on the calendar. It's a vibrational field where meaning is seared into being. If your mother was emotionally absent, maybe your body learned not to need. If she was unpredictable, maybe you became an expert in sensing other people's moods. But who takes care of you now? This woman you've become, is she still driven by the child who just wanted safety? Could your silence today be the repetition of that crib where cries had no answer? How many adult decisions have you made with the heart of a wounded child? You didn't come into this world empty. You came full of feelings that were never yours, but now live inside you as if they were. And that's why, sometimes, you feel confused, as if your pain were older than your own steps, because it is. And as long as this ancestral story remains hidden in the basement of your psyche, it will keep writing you. But what if you could rewrite that origin? Not with denial, but with awareness. In the next step, we will touch the most unstable ground of all, the moment when the mother, symbol of the world, becomes a territory of survival. Because when the mother is the world, the rest of life becomes an effort not to die from rejection. When the mother is the world, everything else becomes survival. Imagine being thrown into an ocean without knowing how to swim. No map, no name, no compass. Now imagine that ocean is your mother's chest. Her warmth, her absence, her gaze, her silence. For a baby, the mother is not someone. She is everything. She is the sky and the earth. She is the beginning and the end. There is no me separate from her. There is only one field where touch is the universe, and abandonment feels like the end of the world. If the world smiles, you relax. If the world disappears, you freeze. If the world rejects you, you learn not to bother. And so, without understanding, your emotional formation begins. You don't learn to be loved. You learn not to be abandoned. That's different. And from that primitive learning, you start shaping your entire existence. making invisible pacts with pain, accepting less as long as it doesn't leave, swallowing what you feel as long as the other stays. How many times have you confused safety with submission? How many times have you erased yourself just to not be left behind? How many times was your yes actually fear of the end? Because when the mother is the world, love is not a gift. It is a minefield where every step could mean loss. And if the world was chaotic, absent, or unpredictable, you learned to survive, not to trust. And now as an adult, that survival has become your norm. You mistrust what feels light. You question what loves you. And without realizing it, you rebuild that same world with new faces, but the same fear. But what if love is not a dangerous place? What if you were trained to expect pain where there could now be presence? In the next step, we'll go even deeper, to the place where that emotional training took root. The place where the mother complex began shaping your reality without you realizing it. Not out of blame, but out of ancient survival, which now you have the right to question. There are voices that don't scream. They whisper from within. And the scariest part is that you believe they are yours, but they are not. They are echoes, echoes from childhood, recorded on the walls of your psyche, like background music that never stopped playing. It's there when you hesitate before speaking, when you overcorrect yourself, when you punish yourself for feeling too much, or when you feel wrong just for existing as you are. Her voice, which once came from outside, now hides in your most intimate thoughts. It's the voice that says, "Don't be too much. Don't do that. No one will love you like this." And you don't notice that you are still in dialogue with her, even when you are alone. This is where the mother complex is born, as Jung described it, an emotional configuration shaped not by what happened, but by how your body felt what happened. That is why you may have had a loving mother and still carry the pain of not feeling enough. It's not about what she meant to give, but about what you were able to receive with the small body you had. Is your perfectionism just personal discipline, or is it ancestral fear of making mistakes and losing love? Is your difficulty setting boundaries really empathy, or is it emotional memory that saying no made affection disappear? Do you know where your voice ends and hers begins? Or have you spent your entire life trying to earn a yes? These questions don't have immediate answers, but they have already begun to crack the walls of the psychic house you live in. And it's through those cracks that the light enters. In the next step, we'll touch the wound hidden behind your constant effort. We will meet the child who, long ago, just wanted to be enough, and who today still tries in silence to prove her worth wherever she goes. There are no villains in this story. The pain you carry does not have a fixed face or a name written in ink of blame. It is more subtle, more profound, more ancient. It is a pattern, an emotional river that began to flow long before you were born and that now runs through you. You are not weak. You are not too needy. You are not broken. You were simply shaped in a field of conditional love where affection came with demands and approval had a cost. And like every child who longs for love, you learn to pay the price. You learn to predict, to silence, to please. You made unconscious pacts with survival. If I'm perfect, they won't leave. If I don't bother, maybe they'll love me. If I take care of everyone, someone will see me. And the cruelest part? It worked. In childhood, it worked. But now, it costs too much. It costs your voice. It costs your peace. It costs the inner space that should be yours, but is always occupied by the needs of others. How many times have you felt like you were too much? How many times have you hidden your pain just to avoid being a burden? How many times have you tried to fix others just to not lose the little love that was left? This is not guilt. It is repetition. It is the mother complex acting silently, not as a curse, but as an emotional script that was never updated. But what if you could stop repeating? What if now, with awareness, you could observe the pattern without mistaking it for yourself? Healing begins when you realize you can choose a new narrative, one where love doesn't require shrinking, one where caring for yourself is not selfishness, but ancestral justice. In the next step, we'll look at the emotional replicas this pattern created, relationships where you still seek what was missing, attachments where, without noticing, you relive the same emptiness. Because what is unresolved often returns with different names, but the same wound. Your relationships are not random. They are emotional replicas. Do you believe you chose who you loved? Do you really think it was you who decided who stayed, who left, who broke you? What if I told you that many of your encounters weren't choices? They were repetitions. Repetitions disguised as coincidence. Old scripts being acted out by new names. But always the same role. The girl who got used to begging for emotional crumbs. The one who mistakes coldness for strength, indifference for mystery, control for safety. You weren't looking for love. You were trying to recognize the pattern of what once was called love, even if it hurt, even if it emptied you. Because what is familiar, even when it wounds, gives the illusion of home. That's why you attracted people who couldn't see you. That's why you stayed with those who made you feel small. That's why you gave until you had nothing left, hoping someone would finally say, "Now you are enough." But that someone never came, because they don't exist out there. They are an inner ghost, a reflection of the first story left unresolved. And you may swear you're looking for something new, but your soul still misses what it once called love, even when it was absence. How many relationships have you lived trying to be chosen? How many times did you silence yourself so you wouldn't scare someone away? How many times did you accept too little just to avoid facing the void? You are not repeating out of weakness. You are repeating because your soul wants to finish the scene that never got closure. It wants to receive at the end what it didn't get in the beginning. But it won't happen on the outside. It won't come from someone else. It will come from within. In the next step, we will find the origin of that effort. We will look at the child who still lives inside you and who, even tired, keeps trying to please as if love still depended on perfection. The child you were is still trying to please. She is there, small, alert, with her shoulders slightly hunched, as if she carries the weight of the world. She makes no noise. She demands nothing. She just watches and tries to become whatever makes her lovable. That child is you, not in childhood photos, but in the way you apologize for existing, in your urgency to solve everything on your own, in your habit of reading others before asking yourself what you feel. She still tries to be perfect, tries to be kind, tries to never disappoint. But with each attempt, she moves further away from herself. And deep down, what that girl wanted was not approval. She wanted arms around her, not applause. She wanted someone to stay. Someone to say, "You don't have to bend yourself to be worthy of love." But no one said that. So she became effort. She became the one who anticipates everything, the one who helps without being asked, the one who adapts to everything, even when it breaks her inside. And now, Even as an adult, you keep trying to make up for what was missing. Not by choice, but because the child you were is still trying to finish a story that never had a happy ending. Have you ever asked yourself why you feel so exhausted? Why you fear making mistakes, even small ones? Why you pressure yourself so much, as if the slightest slip would lead to abandonment? That girl lives in you, and while she remains unseen, your life becomes a performance to please. A silent cycle where you mold yourself, give too much, lose yourself just to maybe be chosen. But the real question isn't whether others will choose you. The question is, when did you stop choosing yourself? In the next step, we will open the door to what was never said, to the swallowed cries, to the silenced scream. We will touch the place where your pain was censored and where your truth is still waiting for permission to exist. There are wounds that don't want to disappear. They want to be heard. They want to be seen, welcomed, named, because deep down, every wound wants to come home. It bleeds not because it is weak, but because it has been alone for too long. Inside you, there is a part that never grew up. It froze at the exact moment when love became conditional. The moment you learned that feeling was dangerous, that crying was annoying, that being too much could push away the very people you needed close. And since then, that part has been waiting for someone to say, "It's okay to speak, I'm staying. It's okay to feel, I'm not leaving." But no one said it, so you silenced yourself. You swallowed the scream, swallowed the fear, the rage, the longing, and wore a smile where there used to be a plea. But no part of us accepts being forgotten, and what is silenced will return. It returns as anxiety, as insomnia, as nameless guilt. It returns in relationships that don't hold you, in tasks that distract you, in inner voices that say you're not enough. But what if it's not weakness? What if it's longing for yourself? What if the pain is your wounded child calling to come home and find you there? Have you ever tried to sit with her? Look into her eyes, not to correct, but to listen. Because healing doesn't happen when we erase pain. It begins when we create a safe space for it to exist. And that space, only you can build. In the next step, we will cross the bridge between what was never said and what was never lived. We will write what was silenced. We will cry what was swallowed. Because before you set yourself free, you need to free your own voice. Write what was never said. Cry what was never allowed. There are words that live in the chest like ghosts. Letters that were never written, but still whisper in the nights when the soul cannot sleep. What if you picked up pen and paper right now? What would your inner child write? Maybe it wouldn't be perfect sentences. Maybe just a shaky scribble, a muffled scream, a question with no answer. Maybe it would begin like this: "Why didn't you see me?" Or, "Why did I have to be so strong, so soon?" You don't need to give this letter to anyone. It's not a protest. It's a birth. It's the chance to give voice to what was suffocated inside you for so long. To return to your story, the words that were stolen from it. To allow the pain to take shape, because only what takes shape can finally dissolve. And crying is not weakness. It is letting the body release what the soul could not carry alone. It is opening the gates of the unconscious. It is washing the corners where the dust of childhood still covers what was once true. How many times have you wanted to say everything, to untie the knot, to break the silence, to speak your version? And why didn't you? Maybe because deep down, you still fear that if you show your pain, love will leave. But what if, by showing that pain, you became whole? What if the unwritten letter was the key to recovering your voice? In the next step, we will go deeper into this inner territory, where the voices mix and you no longer know if you are living your truth or repeating someone else's script. Because only when you recognize your own voice can you finally begin to exist fully. Close your eyes, just for a moment. Listen to what's moving through your mind. Who is speaking there? The voice that says you haven't done enough. The one that asks if you're being selfish for putting yourself first. The one that demands perfection, even when no one is watching. That voice, is it yours? Or is it the echo of someone you once tried to please to survive? There comes a point in life when the confusion becomes unbearable. You look in the mirror, but no longer know who is there. The face is yours, but the decisions feel imposed. The emotions often don't even belong to you. It's like living in a house where all the windows were replaced without you noticing. And the truth is, you can't build a new life with bricks you inherited. The voice of the mother, real or symbolic, takes hold early and begins to weave an inner narrative about who you should be. But you are not a duty. You are a being. Still, every day, you wake up negotiating your authenticity, saying yes with a tense body, smiling with tired eyes, doing what is expected, not what you desire. Have you ever asked yourself, what if I stopped trying to please? What if I wasn't afraid of being misunderstood? What if I simply said what I truly feel and stayed? This separation between your voice and hers doesn't happen in a rupture. It happens in a return. In the moment when you hear each internal phrase and ask, is this true for me? Or is it old loyalty? It is in that intimate, almost imperceptible gesture that you begin to free yourself, to step out of the script of the daughter who needed to be accepted, and begin to write the story of the woman who allows herself to be whole. Because recognizing the mother's voice is one thing, discovering that she still lives inside you as an active character is another. And maybe, just maybe, you are treating yourself the way she treated you. The mother inside you, the one who now sets your limits, defines affection, makes judgments, and who can, in fact, learn to love differently. She stayed, even after childhood ended, even after you left home. She stayed, not as a physical presence, but as an emotional pattern. The mother became structure. She became the way you treat yourself when you make a mistake, the way you blame yourself for feeling too much, the way you abandon yourself in silence. You don't realize it, but sometimes you are repeating in her, inside yourself, the same difficult love you once tried to understand on the outside. Maybe she is too demanding, maybe she is critical, or maybe just absent. Present for others, but absent from yourself. And the most painful part is that even knowing it hurts, you repeat it. Out of loyalty, out of fear, out of habit, because it's what you learned love was, and what you learned it meant to be loved. But what if now you could re-educate that inner mother? What if she is not your fate, but your creation? What if, every day, in small gestures, you could teach her what she never learned to give, to care without judgment, to stay even when things aren't okay, to hold without asking for perfection? You can start slowly, with a shower taken with presence, with a meal that nourishes instead of just filling, with a pause you never allowed yourself to take. It's not about perfection. It's about creation. Because just as your real mother was shaped by her own wounds, you now have the chance to become the sculptor of a new way to love, from the inside out. Have you ever imagined what your life would be like if you had grown up feeling safe, seen, accepted? You can offer that to yourself now, not as replacement, but as inner revolution. Because when the inner mother learns to love differently, life begins to respond differently too. Forgiveness may never come, recognition may never arrive, and even so, healing is still possible. You may never hear "I'm sorry" from the mouth that hurt you, but you can still give yourself what no one else gave, and that is freedom. You could spend a lifetime waiting for that conversation to finally happen, for your pain to be acknowledged, for someone to say, "I hurt you and I'm sorry." But maybe that day will never come, because not every story ends with repair. Some stories simply end, and within that silence, a hard but powerful choice is born: to remain trapped in what never came, or to free yourself anyway. You don't need an apology to heal. You don't need someone to validate your pain for it to be real. You only need to stop shrinking before it, to stop blaming yourself for the lack of answers, to stop living in the hope that someone else will return to fix what broke. Sometimes, the only way forward is to accept that the apology you waited for might never come. And in that place, where bitterness could take root, something much more sacred can be born. The choice to care for yourself like no one ever did. The decision to break the cycle without needing permission. The courage to look inward and say, "I know what I felt. I know what I lacked, and I choose to be free." It's not quick, but it's yours. You have the right to end the cycle without applause, to leave the scene without an audience, to close the door without screams, only with dignity. And this silent act is a scream of freedom, because you are no longer waiting to be rescued. You are the rescue. And when that decision matures inside, something shifts in your body, in your voice, in your destiny. You realize that the power to heal was never in someone else. It was in you, all along. And now that this truth begins to reveal itself, a new question is, who do you become when you choose to be what you always needed? Not with closure, but with rebirth. Because being the mother you needed is the deepest gesture of love, forgiveness, and freedom you can offer yourself. Imagine a woman walking alone through an open field. She carries an old suitcase in her hands, full of voices, memories, fears. She has dragged it for so long that she almost forgot she could let it go. But there, in the middle of the field, she stops, and she decides to open that suitcase, not to relive the pain, but to choose what no longer makes sense to carry. That woman is you, and the suitcase is everything that was imposed on you as love, but only taught you how to shrink yourself. You spent your life trying to find someone who would do for you what your mother couldn't do. But what if no one can? What if now it's you, the one who has to learn how to be that embrace? Yes, it's unfair. It's exhausting. It's lonely at times, but it is also sacred. Being the mother you needed is looking at your fragile parts with new eyes. It's telling yourself, "I see you." You're allowed to cry without being judged. You don't have to hold it all together. It's giving your life the tone of voice you always wished to hear. And that is revolution. It is breaking the cycle at the exact place where it always began again. In the absence of true affection, in the repetition of abandonment, in the demand for perfection. This is no longer about perfection. It's about presence. Can you imagine holding your own hand? Listening to your pain without rushing it? Caring for yourself the way you would care for a frightened child? Because that's what you are, daughter and mother to yourself, at the same time. And this internal reconciliation changes everything. The way you love, the way you protect yourself, the way you exist in T. One last choice that seals this crossing with courage. And it is in the silence of that choice that true liberation is born. Liberation that doesn't depend on anything outside. One that rises from within and begins with 3 simple words that carry the weight of an entire lineage being healed. And that is what you will hear in the last step of your journey. There is no background music, no witnesses, no fireworks. There is only you, in an intimate, invisible moment, standing before a choice that doesn't scream but transforms everything. You can repeat. You can follow the familiar flow. You can keep loving the way you were taught, living the way you were trained, and wounding yourself in the same place where you once just wanted to be loved. Or you can take a deep breath and do the unthinkable, interrupt the script. Today, it's not the little girl who pleads. It's the woman who chooses. She chooses to care for her pain without placing it in someone else's hands. She chooses to speak, even with a trembling voice. She chooses not to run from herself. She chooses to stop waiting for something that may never come, and still love. With strength, with presence, with truth. You don't need an audience to be free. The deepest freedom doesn't prove itself through shouting. It is felt in the body, when you realize you no longer carry the old fear of being rejected for being who you are. And if you tremble, that's okay. And if you cry, even better. Because every tear now is lava, melting down the structures that kept you small. And by doing that, something you cannot see is also set free. Maybe a daughter who will come after you. Maybe the child you once were. Maybe an entire lineage that can finally rest. Because it was always about this. Not about blame, but about awareness. About putting an end to the echo that crossed generations without being questioned. And now, as that echo meets its final wall, it dissolves in silence. Do you hear it? It's your own voice, for the first time, without interference. Pure, clear, whole. And with it, you can finally say, I return to myself. I choose myself. I heal myself. It's because something inside you already knew. The cycle ends here, and a new story begins now. Are you ready to write it? If you've made it this far, it means something in you is ready to come home. Not the home of childhood, but the one that exists within you, when you finally see yourself with love and courage. If this touched something in you, breathe. You are not alone. This space is made for souls like yours, tired of repeating and ready to awaken. This channel is a refuge, a crossing, a mirror where you can see yourself without fear. Subscribe and walk this path with us. Every video is a key, every word a step back home. And now, write in the comments, this is where my new story begins. Let the universe hear your choice. And if you wish to continue this journey, the next video is already waiting for you. Because what heals is not the end. It's the path you choose to walk with an awakened heart.